Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 8th and tonight's movie is Frankenstein's Army. I've known about this movie for a while and eventually decided to check it out because the mere premise of this movie just sounds bonkers. It's this group of Soviet soldiers at the very end of World War II invading Germany along with a propagandist who's recording everything, and they encounter an army of undead mechanical soldiers created by a mad scientist descended from Victor Frankenstein. This is a movie about Nazi robot zombie soldiers. The effects look very good, and we're able to see it extremely well with this camera, which definitely was like handheld cameras they had back in the 40s. This kind of feels like an exploitation/B movie, but it looks very polished, so I don't know what to expect. This is a complete wild card. I guess I'm just gonna have to watch it and find out. Well, that was just awful. I'm giving Frankenstein's Army a 2 out of 10. Don't watch this movie, it's not worth it. The premise of this movie is so ridiculous that I felt going into it the only way to make it work is just make it completely off the wall crazy. And this movie absolutely goes completely off the rails at some points, but for most of it, I think it's trying to play it straight. And even if they weren't, they didn't put in enough things in this movie that are actually funny, or even a joke at all. I'm going to dispense with the 2-part review, spoiler and non-spoiler again, because just like with UFO abduction, there is not a lot that actually happens in Frankenstein's Army. This seems less like a movie and more like one giant showcase of admittedly some amazing special effects. Like, the creepy abominations that Frankenstein makes in this movie are very impressive looking, and they look and they move very good. But the movie only starts getting really crazy enough to support itself about 2/3 of the way through. Before that, we are just following a group of main characters, and the ones that aren't absolutely reprehensible people are very bland and boring. The movie is at its best when they're actually in Frankenstein's lab. You see all the crazy things going on. Why couldn't that have just been the movie? This could have been a documentary about this mad scientist, sort of like Behind the Mask from last year. Instead, the first 2 acts of this movie are us following this team of soldiers around. There's not a lot that happens, it's paced poorly, and at the end of the movie, barely any of it matters anyway. I'm not gonna say that this movie had a great idea, but this movie at least had an idea, and it seemed to go out of its way to do as little with that idea as possible. The only real good thing about this movie are, like, the designs and the effects of these creepy monsters. Some of them have knives for hands, one of them has these giant crab claws, there's a guy who's like an old-time scuba diver. Even this one thing that looks like a walking cauldron, and it all looks real. Girl on the Third Floor from last year was also pretty reliant on its use of special effects, but at least there was an attempt to create a story and likable characters. I can't really say that about Frankenstein's Army. Walking around these action scenes and the lab are the best parts of the movie. It feels almost like a first-person shooter or something. But that's really not enough to warrant making an entire movie. This was just bad. I was definitely taking a chance by including this on the list of the movies this year, and that risk did not pay off. Now I feel bad for all the other movies I scrapped, because I'm sure at least most of them were better than Frankenstein's Army. Alright, I'll see you guys tomorrow.